Your football Sunday has dwindled down to this. Just a bunch of busted bets and broken fantasy dreams. You need this, and we're here for you. Immediate reaction, big opinions, gang tackling. Be one with the channel. It's DA Sunday Pig Pod. Oink, oink, suckers.
Oink, oink, suckers. What's up, everybody? So glad you're with us on this fine Sunday night. How we doing? All right, we got week 15 of the NFL season here, and my friend Pat Leonard is going to join us here on the program. Pat is an NFL insider for the New York Daily News, so we're going to talk to him coming up here on the show when things go final in both Detroit and when it goes final as well with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles game also, okay? So everybody is going to be set with those games. The late games will get his complete kind of picture on all of that coming up here on the show. Also, he's going to have the latest on the Jets and Giants fiascos and whether coaching changes are going to happen with the Giants, as well as another awful day for the New York Jets and the body language of one Aaron Rodgers. And so all of that coming up tonight here on the show with Pat, who's going to join us coming up here in just a little bit. Tonight, it's just you and me, everybody. That's right. It is a solo voyage with yours truly because Mr. Aiden Hatton is out tonight. And so we're going to just do this between the hash marks, as we like to say. It's just going to be a bare bones type of situation here. Just going to move the chains, string together a bunch of first downs, and that's the way it's going to go, okay? And so make sure you get those comments coming in because with the comments, I can get to a lot of comment tonight because we have stripped down the production. So what you lose in production, you get in intimacy. All right, here on Watch DA Live. Also, a reminder to, if you're not subscribed to the channel, to make sure you're subscribed by clicking on this button below me. Hit the button below me, and you will make sure you are one with the channel. That's right. And that way you'll get notifications when we go live each and every Sunday. Also, when there's DA deep dives, and just overall, to be closer to the digital mothership, make sure you are subscribed. Sub-family, Watch the Aliens. Make sure you click on that button below me and share this with your friends and family around the holidays. What's the best gift? The gift of Watch DA Live. Isn't that right? All right, so here we go, everybody. Let's do this. A couple of amazing games over the course of the day. And I'll tell you, we have fireworks in Detroit. I did not think the Bills were going to be able to win this game. I did not think the Bills were going to be able to play, kind of yard for yard, touchdown for touchdown, throw for throw with the Lions. But the Bills have done everything and more today to put themselves in a position to win. So when things go final there, we'll obviously analyze it all. But it has been a good night all around for the Buffalo Bills. And this offense behind Josh Allen's at a completely different level than it has been in any of the other years he's been there. Not only because, he's always been a dynamic player, but now he's just not turning the football over. He's damn near perfect every single week. So that thing is just rolling offensively with the Buffalo Bills. And when it goes final, obviously, we will break it all down. And as always, want to thank our sponsors, Last Dive Bar and Santo Tequila, Santo Spirits. They have jumped on board the mothership, and they want to be part of the family. And we said, why not? Let's do it. So why not? Let's do it. Shall we? All right, let's start things off with your fear. I remember that being so much longer when I was actually not solo with Aiden. I thought I was going to have a little bit more time to just reset here. But as we stand right now, 38-21 as the Bills have the lead in Detroit with the Lions. And then the Steelers and Eagles game is a 14-point lead for the Eagles at home as well. But I wanted to start today with that Patrick Mahomes situation, okay? Because let's face it, The Mahomes situation is the defining play of the day, no matter what happens in Buffalo, no matter what happens in Detroit, no matter what happens with the Eagles and Steelers. No matter what happens on the day, Mahomes being crunched backwards on all fours, limping off with his offensive lineman, is right now, in many ways, the only thing that matters. And you don't ever root for an injury. I don't care if you root against the Chiefs or not. It is bad, bad mojo to do so. No matter how much you hate the Chiefs for winning so much, no matter how much you hate a team, never, ever, 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 ever root for an injury because it will come back. I know it. I've seen it. The sports gods, do not taunt them. Do not tease them. They will crack that lightning right in your head. But if Mahomes is unable to go, he's week to week right now for the Chiefs. If he's unable to be 100% or even close to 100% for the playoffs, it changes the entire complexion of the AFC postseason. Let's set aside the Super Bowl for the moment. Right now, I believe there's 3 teams that can beat the Chiefs. The Bills, the Ravens, the Steelers, okay? No matter what happens over the course of Week 15, I believe that when we get to January, those 3 teams can beat the Chiefs. If you take Patrick Mahomes and make him 60%, 70%, or Carson Wentz is starting, then those 3 teams should beat the Kansas City Chiefs or would beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You see, you take away the can they, you take away will they, and you make it they should, they will. Because this entire season has basically been a Chiefs defense, keep it close, a Chiefs special teams, keep it close, and Patrick Mahomes make a couple of plays out of nothing. Create some magic, pull a rabbit out of the hat, and figure it out that way. If you eliminate the Patrick Mahomes factor, the Chiefs become incredibly, incredibly vulnerable. Now, I already think they are, and I've talked about this theory before here on this show and on my morning show on Sirius XM. I think we see a champion that's running on fumes. When you watch throughout NFL history, the teams that have attempted to go for a three-peat, each and every one of them has fallen short the following year. Now, some of them have reached an NFC championship game, like the San Francisco 49ers in 1990, like the Dallas Cowboys in 1994. Some of them have missed the playoffs altogether, like the Denver Broncos in 1999. But that was an extenuating circumstance. They had lost John Elway in the offseason. The Steelers attempted to three-peat twice. That's one of the greatest teams of all time. Had 2 chances at it. Could not get back to the Super Bowl. I think any team that plays as many postseason games that the Chiefs have played, or any team that goes back-to-back, you are worn down emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I think that's what's happened this year. Now, add to it that the Chiefs just offensively have not been able to get it to gear because of some injuries. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown. Now, add on top of all of that, a team that's running on fumes, a team that's had the X on its back for a long time, and their difference maker, Patrick Mahomes, is less than 100%. That injury right there, I'm telling you, for it to happen so close to the postseason, is how the AFC playoff picture can change in a blink of an eye. Now, we'll wait to see the official word this week. And the thing is, Mahomes has always been a quick healer, and Mahomes has seemingly never been 1,000%. It has always felt as though Patrick Mahomes is playing with some type of bang, some type of injury, some type of nick or something that has limited him in some ways. But that one, I mean, his entire body's bent back the wrong way. And even after the game, the Chiefs admit he's week to week. That's significant. That's really significant. And if you're a Bills fan, a Ravens fan, a Steelers fan, if you're a Broncos fan, if you're a team that might not have a Chargers fan, have thought Super Bowl, I'm not saying you think Super Bowl yet. I am saying you think, hey, if we get the Chiefs, we have a chance. We have a chance. But I'm more inclined to talk about the top dogs in the AFC and going from they could to they would with a limited Patrick Mahomes. That, to me, is the biggest story, no matter what happens over the course of Week 15. I want to talk about Bill Belichick as well, because Bill Belichick and this marriage between him and the UNC Tar Heels is so interesting from a historic standpoint. And you guys know I love the history of all of these leagues. I love looking for the pockets or the rhythms or the patterns of how things have played out over time. And the Belichick thing has no equal. It has no peer. There is nothing close to this in NFL history, where one of the greatest coaches of all time wants to coach again and doesn't have a job. Okay? All of the other guys were burnt out of where they were, and then their second job was, I don't want that, or just flat retired and said, that is it. The cavalry came, and now I ride off into the sunset. Never has there been a greatest coach in the NFL that couldn't get a job in the NFL, and he wanted it. And that has clearly happened to Bill Belichick, and that much is remarkable. Bill Belichick, according to Seth Wickersham, Diana Rossini, and others, had reached out over the course of the season to gauge interest in his services. He had called or had people call on behalf of him. Rossini reported, and she's been a guest here on Watch DA Live earlier in the season, friend of the program. She says that he actually reached out to the Jets personally. The Jets, who you know he hates with a flaming passion and cannot stand Woody Johnson, considering the shots he took at Woody earlier in the year. And even that, he would grovel and say, are you interested? The fact that he took this job means every single door in the NFL had closed on him and locked shut. Every single job. And that, my friends, has never happened. Vince Lombardi left the Packers, but after a year away, he said, I want back in, and Washington said, the job is yours. Now, he passed away shortly after that, but he had a job. Okay? When Tom Landry was pushed out of Dallas, that was it. He didn't want to come back. When Chuck Noll was done in Pittsburgh, he didn't try to come back. Bill Walsh did try to coach again at Stanford, but he didn't want back into the NFL. The grind was too much for Bill Walsh. His health situation was not good. He knew he needed something as he turned down the pressure. Don Shula pushed out in Miami, retired. That was it. Bill Parcells had a job as long as he wanted one in the NFL. Every time he stepped away, somebody else said, we'll give you a job. And he even became an administrator for the Miami Dolphins after he finished coaching. We have not had a situation where one of the great head coaches ever wants to coach, and the NFL says, no vacancy. Now, how does something like this happen? Something like this happens because he always, I think, reveled in being an antagonist. I think he liked being an outsider and probably had a little victimhood thing in there. How dare you come after me for Spygate? How dare you embarrass me over these things? You know what? I'm not going to play the game with you guys. I'm not playing. And it is underscored by the fact that when there were coaches' team photos over the course of the years, he didn't even show up for the coaches' fraternity. This wasn't kissing the boots of owners. He wouldn't show up to that. You know, and it's the goofy picture we make fun of every single year. He wouldn't even show up for that. I'm not playing your game. Now think about maybe you were antisocial in high school and you looked at the popular kids and said, I'm not one of you. So you know what? I'm not showing up to any of your graduation parties. Maybe this has been some part in your life where you worked in an office and saw there was a clique, the cool kids. You said, I'm not playing that game. Now they got the Christmas party going, or they're doing this thing for the holidays, or they're doing this team bonding. I'm not showing up to work. No way. Which is fine. It's not against the rules for Bill Belichick. But now that he has wanted to get back in, that knife is cut back the other way. That knife has cut him. He was, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you. And now he needs somebody. I need somebody love. He's got nobody. And that's why he's at North Carolina. Do I think it works? Yeah, I think to a certain degree. I mean, if you ask me today, how many years over under Bill Belichick's in Chapel Hill? I'd say 4.5. That's the over under I would set. Right around there. 4 years, 5 years. He's 72. Okay. So if he coaches 5 years, he's 77 years old. It's hard to coach near 80. So I would say 4 or 5 years. And in those 4 or 5 years, do I think that they'll win 8 or 9 games? Yeah, I think they're an 8-4, 9-3 team. In 1 or 2 of those seasons, maybe they go into one of the last regular season games with a chance to win the ACC. And hell, they could play in an ACC championship game and maybe even win an ACC championship. It's not like he's going to the SEC. All of that's on the table. He's not winning a national championship. Let's get real here. You're not going to walk into UNC and suddenly win a national championship, but you can get in the tournament. There's no doubt about that. SMU's in the tournament. Come on. Boise State's in the tournament. Arizona State's in the tournament. He can get there. Now, can he win enough games over the blue bloods of college football? Can you beat the Georgias and the Ohio States to get there? I don't think so. But I think it'll work to a certain degree. But in some ways, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. Now, I mean, look, I've been a Patriots hater for a long time. This is going to be written on my tombstone forever. I mean, I went to battle against the Patriots for many years on the radio because for me, they sucked the joy out of winning. You know, I know there's a business side to all of this, and I realize that the way they approached it helped them win as much as they did. At the same time, I can't get past the fact that you have multiple cheating scandals, a coach who has been penalized and docked draft picks multiple times, a quarterback that has been suspended for breaking rules as well. You have a double homicide guy that's been on the roster, okay, and a significant contributor to the team. You have an alienation of all media that ever tried to cover you, including yours truly. I didn't take it personally, but, you know, I covered the Chiefs. I covered the Dolphins. I covered multiple teams around Boston that were not named the New England Patriots. And players had a certain level of joy, had a certain level of appreciation and gratitude, that not for the media, but for the opportunity. And for Belichick and the Patriots, they tried to strip away any of that identity, any of that joy. And it was the moment they won a Super Bowl, what was their calling card? No days off. Well, man, if the greatest achievement in your life, you can't enjoy for a day, no days off, what are we even really trying to accomplish here? So it's just a war. It's just a war to carry the most pelts, to have the most trophies. That I could never resonate with. So I didn't ever like the Patriots. And it became gluttonous towards the end, let's face it. At the same time, if one of the greatest coaches in NFL history can't get a job in the NFL, there's a problem there. And there were 7 openings last season. There's 3 now this year. There will probably be another 3, I would say, this offseason. You're telling me there's 13 front offices and owners and GMs that are too good for Bill Belichick? Come on. That's ridiculous. And I would imagine he became pickier, or he was pickier last year than he is this year. And I would imagine he was more willing to conform this year because he wanted a job in the NFL. If he's willing to call the Jets, which is the ex you hated for years and said, I can't stand him. He's a cheating, lying fool. You badmouthed him forever. You made fun of the people he was around. You made fun of his family or his new girlfriend. The fact that he would call the ex and say, hey, you up? You single? Means he was desperate and he would have conformed. And everybody said no. There's an element here that's sad. And I do believe in karma. And I do believe in mojo. And I do believe how you treat people is how they will treat you in some space in this universe. Belichick treated a lot of people poorly. And Belichick pushed a lot of people away. And the fact that at the end, the owner of the team, who, let's face it, could be a bit petty, could be a brat in Robert Kraft, could be insecure, the fact that that guy wanted to slam you in the documentary series. And the fact that the NFL said no vacancy says what goes around comes around. And Bill Belichick's going to put on a smile and wear a cutoff at UNC, and everybody in Chapel Hill is going to say this is a wonderful win. But in some ways, this is a pretty sad ending. Bill Belichick's coaching a middle-of-the-road ACC team, and his grand accomplishment's going to be the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. There's something pretty sad there. All right now, we are waiting on the end of the late window of games, because when we go final with all of those games, my friend Pat Leonard's going to join us here on the show. And Pat is a fantastic NFL insider for the New York Daily News. Things are still cooking in Detroit right now between the Bills and the Lions. This is an offensive outburst, 45-35 right now with 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. As you might imagine, the Bills can't make anything comfortable, and their defense certainly not making anything easy as well. I wanted to talk about as well on this show my vibes on this college football playoff in general, okay? Before we get back to the NFL, just since we were talking about the Bill Belichick thing. And I have always been skeptical that a 12-team playoff, this expanded playoff, is the best thing for the sport. Because one of the things that I loved most about the sport was the regular season. Man, did it matter. A game like the Eagles with the Steelers, a game like the Bills and the Lions. In college, that's not just a big game. That game's an elimination game. Imagine the loser of Bills-Lions doesn't make the playoffs. I mean, imagine the loser of Steelers-Eagles walks. That's it. Season done. I mean, that's the type of significance so many big regular season games used to have in college. And I was worried that 12 teams strips us of that. And in some ways it did. In some ways, when you had Ohio State and Michigan, and Ohio State can lose that game and still comfortably get into the college football playoff, then you really don't have the monumental significance of the regular season anymore. But what I didn't account for was that didn't matter to most fans. What mattered to most fans was not making sure that a 2-loss team didn't get in. It was a more democratic version of college football, because ratings were sky high this year. For the regular season, sky high. Interest has boomed. And a couple of things strike me about that. Number one, for all of the cynics, the pessimists, the naysayers that said, well, if we start paying college players, then amateurism's gone and nobody's going to want to watch. Fans will leave in droves because nobody wants to watch paid college players. Whoops. I mean, did it even make a blip on anybody's radar? Did anybody even stop for 5 minutes and say, I can't really enjoy this game because the quarterback is making $750,000 in NIL money? It doesn't even register. Doesn't even register. The second part is, and look, I believed it, that when you water down the regular season, then the sport starts to lose some juice. That clearly didn't take either. That obviously didn't take. And so what you have is a sport that actually built an audience, which is so hard to do in 2024 with such a saturated market. They built a new audience. And they built audiences out of schools that used to never have a dog in the fight. And it is amazing to watch a sport go up like this when everything is topsy-turvy and nobody seems to be going, this is not the sport that I used to love. I mean, look at the ACC that's got schools in the Bay Area and Florida. Look at the Big Ten, where Oregon and Rutgers are conference foes. Look at the Big 12. Could you even keep track of who was in the Big 12 this year? And yet, none of that seemed to depress interest in the sport. It was pretty amazing to watch. All of the things that many people assumed could hurt the sport irrevocably didn't. And what saved it was the playoff. And it is a reminder for myself, who works in a business of trying to gauge what people want to listen to and want to watch and hear about, what they want to watch and hear about. And what they want to watch and hear about is football. The NBA's ratings are struggling. Baseball's had to tweak a lot of things, and they've done a good job, and they had really good ratings in October. But boy, they still have a lot of work to be done. Stanley Cup playoffs, they had a huge Game 7 last year. That was phenomenal, but obviously the NHL has always been trying to work their way up the mountain. MLS Cup, barely registered. Nobody even noticed that the Red Bulls and Galaxy played. Ratings way down. WNBA, doing very well. Caitlin Clark effect. But one thing matters more than anything. Football wins. And football inventory wins. And it doesn't matter how you doctor it up. Doesn't matter if you pay the players or not. Doesn't matter if the leagues, the conferences, the rivalries look nothing the way they used to. People still flock to football. There's just no doubt about it. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, legalized gambling certainly has helped football because it's the easiest sport to wager on. Their numbers are round. You're talking about 7s and 3s and 4s instead of 1.5 goals, a half run, a lot harder. In basketball, people don't have to watch it till the final 5 minutes. In football, you have to sit down and watch an entire game. You get sucked in. The scarcity of it, just 1 game a week versus 2 or 3, or in baseball's case, 6 or 7. Football has the perfect product, and college football is learning that today. More inventory. And by the way, we had how many people say around college football, well, you can't have an expanded playoff because there's too many games. What about the academics? Whoops, 2.0. Did they ever really believe it? Because think about this. A team that plays in the first round, that plays in the national championship game, would play 12 regular season games. Let's just take Arizona State, for example. 12 regular season games. A 13th conference championship game. 14 is the first round. 15 is the second round. 16, 17 potential games being played. You kidding me? 16 or 17 games being played by a championship team is a professional schedule. That is a professional schedule, and yet, does anybody cry academics with these football teams, with these football players? Nobody even mentions that players will be gone constantly on the road for a month and a half to play playoff games, postseason games. Whoops. Guess that wasn't that big a deal, huh? Guess that just wasn't that big a deal. Pretty amazing. All right, send us your commentary, your questions, your comments, your concerns right now on wherever it is that you're watching. Could be X, could be on YouTube. Hit us up, and we will read through those over the course of today's show. Also, when things go final in the late games, we will break it down as well. My man, Stephen Murray, is the voice of the one and only 12 DAs of Christmas, the Halloween Spectacular, and many, many more things. And Stephen says, boy, DA's hair, as everybody's commenting on this, almost matches. Hang on. My screen is doing wonky things. His logo on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, that's impressive. Hashtag all in. That's exactly right, guys. As you can see, I'm kind of letting the locks go here. And it's the winter, and during the summer, I usually have it kind of tight. I usually have it kind of short, but during the winter, I just feel like I'm just going to grow it out a little bit. And so it is absolutely matching the hair of the logo. And it's like the Jerry West logo, you know? So there you go. Wallace is saying, well, at least you could use contractions like a normal person. I don't even know what that is because I'm actually just looking through the comments right now. So that's something to reference something else. So I'm actually just going to try to keep finding ones that I actually can. Oh, here you go. Delta 9 Brian, daily, I finally tried a joint that I got for $5 on Black Friday. Wish I could email you the video of me taking my first puffs. See, this is the type of family content that we're looking for here on the show. The family of the aliens are together and they're helping one another out, especially during the holidays. Isn't that nice? You know, in many states, that's all legal right now. So this is nothing to, be worried about. This is all on the up and up. And for the aliens, what you can always count on is a group of people coming together and really trying to support one another, especially during the holidays. Really grand. Speaking of, I just want to put this in your ear again. Mraz and I are working currently on the date of the next Bob's Bar show, which is going to be coming up in the summer. We're going to do it in the summer. And when we have the date, I'll give it to you as early as possible because I would love it if you could make it out to New York for that show and kind of tie it into maybe a family, a couple, or a solo vacation in New York. We'll make it during the summer so that kids have off. You'll have some time off as well, can take some vacation and tie it in. Where Mraz lives is actually very close to the beach. So you can make it a beach vacation on Long Island. You can make it a Manhattan vacation in New York City. You can make it a bunch of different things. But I want to give it to you guys as early as possible so that you can put the ball in motion. I'm thinking about the brilliance of Rob Manfred and the Major League Baseball powers that be that put out next season's schedule during the previous season. And I'm thinking that might be a little early. That would be like me giving out the 2026 Bob's Bar show before the 2025 Bob's Bar show, right? So we won't go there. Or be like the day before the 25 Bob's Bar show, already setting up your 26. It's a little distracting, but I'm going to give it to you with many weeks/months in advance that you guys can make it work. And I'm planning some big things because, as I said, I was so pleased by the way that the Bob's Bar show went a couple of weeks ago. And I know that it was on short notice, but we brought it together on short notice and the vibes were so good. And that video is here on this channel. You can watch of all the great D-aliens that showed up. Also the classic characters like Pete the Body Bilotti and Mraz's dad, Bob. It was just great to see everybody. And I just thought these vibes are so good. I want to make sure we make it as accessible to everybody as humanly possible. So that's what we're going to do. Get you guys that as early as possible. And when I do, you'll be the first to know when I finally settle that in with Mraz. We're working on some things, and it's going to be awesome. It really is. I'm going to make sure that this is a big old party. And we're going to have a lot of stuff to it, a lot of layers to it. And it's going to be a great way to celebrate so many things. You know, when I was over on CBS Sports Radio, we had this incredible fraternity/sorority of listeners, the D-aliens, and many of them came with me over to Sirius XM, and that's been beautiful. And many more came here to YouTube and watch on Sunday nights and follow the channel and subscribe to the channel, so I get to hear from them all the time on social media or in the comments and the chat boxes for YouTube. That's amazing. We have the email address as well, watchDALive@gmail.com, so I get a lot of emails there from D-aliens near and far. I've had people reach out to me, and this is no lie, recently from my days in Fort Myers. And I was there in 02 and 03. So you're talking about more than 20 years ago, people have caught up with this channel or caught up with me on Sirius XM, and maybe they weren't along for the ride at other places, but they've reconnected with me. And it just makes me feel so thankful that I'm like, we have to throw a freaking party. And when you guys get together, I see the beauty of it. When we did the show last Friday, which was the office party, and I got to see Wallace there, who's always a great commenter here on Watch GA Live. And I got to see Randy in Ohio and other D-aliens come from near, far, and wide, and new ones that have gravitated towards me and the new show with Babs, who were listeners at Sirius XM, but now are listeners to my show as well. It's just so cool to bring everybody together. I'm so hyped by it, and I want to make sure that you guys have as much chance as possible to connect with one another and reconnect with the show. If maybe you were listening to CBS or you don't listen to Sirius XM or you're new to Sirius XM and you found the YouTube channel, what have you. So I'm going to get you guys that information as quickly as possible. I promise. All right. So we're almost final in all of the late games, and this has been an incredible effort for the Buffalo Bills against the Lions, perhaps the best team in football, to put up damn near 50 points. Man, oh man, it has been a sight to behold. Joining us here on the show to break down that, as well as so many other things from across the day in football, is my good friend, Pat Leonard here, New York Daily News, NFL Insider. Pat, how we doing, buddy?
DA, doing great. Thanks for having me on, man.
You got it. Are you still in the bowels of MetLife Stadium after the Ravens kicked the butt of the Giants today?
I am. I'm sitting here. And to be honest, DA, it's about 3 hours after the game, but the stadium looks similar to what it looked like in the fourth quarter. I mean, a lot of gray, empty seats. The only difference is I don't hear the shouting, cheering Ravens fans. There were so many Ravens fans at this game. Like, you said to yourself, wow, it's pretty empty in here. And then when Lamar Jackson made his first couple big plays, you started hearing these loud cheers, and you were thinking, wait, am I at MT&T Stadium down in Baltimore? Nope, I'm in New Jersey at MetLife watching planes fly overhead saying, John Mara, fire everyone.
How embarrassed do you think the Mara family is from the lack of Giants fans showing up, the complete apathy, the planes flying overhead, getting their butt kicks, obviously the record as well? How embarrassed are they?
Terribly embarrassed, especially DA. You know this. John Mara, if there's one thing, you can accuse him of a lot of things. The one thing he's on the record saying will never happen, that he does not allow, is tanking. And the only thing that people can come up with to rationalize what they're seeing right now is, well, the Giants are trying to get the number one pick. That gets under John Mara's skin more than anything, because he firmly believes in the integrity of the game, in putting a product out there that the fans and that the organization can be proud of. And I mean, listen, he's on the competition committee. You can't be considered one of the consciences of the league and a consigliere of sorts to the commissioner, and someone whose family and organization has been a staple and bedrock of the NFL, and be tanking your season and then excusing your general manager and your coach and your operation because, well, Tankathon looks good because we're high up there with the Raiders. Like, that's so, to answer your question, that's how embarrassed they are, is that's the conversation. How that translates, though, to action and what they do, it's still up in the air. I would tell you this. Every Monday, the last 4 weeks, I've woken up thinking I might have a text message saying that's the day. And so far it hasn't happened, but it could be tomorrow, or they could wait till the end of the season. We don't know.
It is an impossible kind of middle nebulous area that the Giants exist in, because they're so bad, they're not trying to tank, and yet they're losing every single game. And so you'd say, well, Brian Daboll's lost the team. He's a bad coach. It's a bad team. You got to blow it up. On the other hand, I know that Mara wants to give Daboll and Shane a chance to have their franchise QB, and the only way you get it is by letting them come back in 2025 and draft a guy this year. So is actually John Mara caught in the worst catch-22 ever right now?
Yeah, that's a fair point. It comes down to whether he agrees with me on this or not. I feel like they've already had their chance to get their quarterback. Like, to say they didn't have a chance to get a QB would be to say that they didn't have a chance to draft Bo Nix. They did, right? They could have drafted Bo Nix. They could have drafted Michael Penix. Obviously, McCarthy ended up with the knee, so that could have backfired easily. They even could have made the home run offer to the Patriots to get that number 3 pick and get Drake May. Number 2 and number 1, those trades weren't going to happen. Washington wasn't going to give them Jaden Daniels in division, and Chicago wasn't trading out of number 1. But maybe they get to 3. And even Russell Wilson, they had him in the building, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are now the beneficiaries of them letting walk out of there. So whether John Mara decides I had my finger on the scale or my thumb on the scale, and therefore these guys deserve a chance to get their own QB, or is his decision, no, I let them do their thing for 3 years. They paid Daniel Jones, not me. They didn't draft a quarterback this year, not me. And so they had their chance. Like, I don't think that's an unfair way to come down on it, but ultimately that depends on what he thinks. I will say this, DA, you tell me what you think of this. We saw John Mara in Hard Knocks not force Joe Shane to re-sign Saquon Barkley, even though he said out loud, I want him back, and if he does leave, I don't want him in Philly, right? So if he's not going to meddle there, why is he meddling in the quarterback and Daniel, but not the face of the franchise player? To me, it's either one or the other. And from my vantage point, this could be naive of me. I feel like I've been covering the Giants since 2016 on. This regime with Shane Dable has been the most earnest attempt by Mara to not meddle. So, it's hard for me to say, hey, it hasn't been fair to these guys for 3 years because John Mara XYZ. I thought Hard Knocks showed us that. It's kind of awkward when your boss walks in and tells you what he wants to see and then walks out, right? It's kind of like even if he didn't tell you what to do, he kind of told you what to do. But from what we know in past seasons, like, it wasn't just a suggestion. It was, here's what we're doing. So it is a complete mess.
I think they're going to let those guys get another crack at it. I think they're coming back in 2025. The problem is that it's so bad towards the end that Mara's almost embarrassingly going to have to give them an extra year. I don't think he wants to fire them. I think he's trying to stay the course badly, and I think ultimately he will. But it's so bad and so embarrassing towards the end that it's probably pushing him to a near breaking point. But I think ultimately he's going to give them that extra shot, and we'll see what they do with it. I want to ask you about this Eagles and Steelers game today. Eagles end up winning the game by a couple of touchdowns, some self-inflicted wounds by the Steelers, some bad penalties, the fumble by Najee Harris, all did them in. But for the Eagles, they're dealing with chemistry issues. Today didn't seem like it's a problem, but Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, clearly there's a thing there, whether they say it's a thing or not. Do you think ultimately that will short-circuit a deep run of the playoffs?
I don't think the relationship part could short-circuit them. I think what people stop talking about, what needs to be talked about as the key issue there, is Jalen Hurts' inability in some of those games to read the field and throw the ball against certain coverages and not react to the blitz by panicking and running, but by using his legs to use his arm. I feel like everything that was said after last week's game, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni, they all said our passing game wasn't good enough. It has to be better. We all know it has to be, right? They've been leaning on their running game. They've been winning games, so it didn't become a problem or an issue. But I don't think it's a secret or something new, DA, that if there's an Achilles heel, it's if you force Jalen Hurts to beat you without a running game kind of helping buttress him in that offense. So, the good thing for the Eagles today is you saw him, get back on the horse there, 290 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. And with that A.J. Brown conflict, that Brandon Graham, obviously, it would have been maybe different if one of their teammates didn't come out and say flat out, hey, yeah, there is an issue here. But it was good to see A.J. Brown get over 100 yards, get in the end zone. Devontae Smith also gets over 100 yards, gets in the end zone. So you can get those better feelings about the locker room and about the way that the passing game can function. Also, the Steelers are a very good team. The Eagles, what they have, DA, to rely on is they are tough. Like, they are physically tough, and the Steelers are physically tough. And the Eagles kind of, I wouldn't say they pushed the Steelers around because the Steelers pushed back, but they out-physicaled Pittsburgh, a team that usually does that to everyone else. So I do think, though, the thing that can hinder the Eagles is still there. It's when the Eagles, let's say, play the Lions. If the Lions go up by 10 or 14 or 13 points in the second quarter, are the Eagles positioned for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball all over the yard like Josh Allen just did for the Bills and score 45 points through the air and win? I still think he would need to show us that. I don't think they would be able to do that. Maybe I'm wrong.
So the Steelers are a good football team, but who knows if they're great? And when they face the Chiefs, or if they face the Chiefs in the playoffs, they'd have to be great. Until this injury to Patrick Mahomes. They led off the show talking about this. An injury to Mahomes really levels the playing field because the Chiefs aren't great aside from the defense keeping them close and then a Mahomes late drive somewhere to kind of save their bacon. If he's less than 100%, suddenly everything kind of evens out in the AFC playoff race. I don't know what you're hearing over the course of today with the injury, but what does a potential injured Mahomes do if he's less than 100% to how you see the AFC playoff race?
Yeah, I know as much about the injury as you do at the moment. Obviously, a lot of concern there because, like you said, well, first of all, hasn't been a very explosive offensive season for the Chiefs. But you and I both know what the Chiefs are good at is they have the best head coach in the league, and they have arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league, and they have a top 3 quarterback. So all they have to do is be in the game in the fourth quarter in those playoff games, even if it's not the best version of themselves. And Patrick Mahomes is going to make those plays to win, just like he did last year in the Super Bowl against the Niners. Without him, it certainly levels the playing field. DA, I'll be honest with you. Before this injury, I have a running joke with Benny Fowler on my Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast. 2 weeks ago, I told him I thought the Steelers could go into Arrowhead with Mahomes healthy in the playoffs and beat the Chiefs. And he thinks I'm crazy. But I think that Pittsburgh has the toughness, the running game, and the game managing ability with the way Arthur Smith is calling things and the way Mike Tomlin, hard to revere a coach more than I revere Mike Tomlin. I think they could do it because the Chiefs they've played a lot of football the last couple of years. They're tired, right? These injuries are what start popping up when guys are playing all these extra games into January and February. I would say this, though, like Buffalo is clearly, get out of their way right now. Like for the Chiefs, the Buffalo is the team that when you ask me about the Steelers and leveling the playing field for them, I think about the fact that as much as the Bills have beaten the Chiefs and they can feel great about how they're playing, you and I both know the Bills got that home field and they still coughed it up. Without Mahomes, that to me clears the path for Josh Allen, not the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what that does because this Chiefs game needs it to be ugly. And right now the Buffalo Bills are anything but ugly.
Well, I actually thought that even before the Mahomes injury, the Bills had a really good shot to knock off the Chiefs. I think that they will knock off the Chiefs if they face each other in the postseason. And that was before the injury. I really do. But specifically with the injury to Mahomes, and again, he has played through injury before. He has looked like he's been less than 100% and kind of, dragged his half a leg or whatever that was, a hip, a knee, an ankle to win. So this is not something we've never seen before. I thought the Bills, we saw this in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago, just match up really well against the Chiefs. The problem is the Bills defense can get shredded. And we saw it against the Rams. And today, look, against the Lions, the Bills defense let that be a game, has let that be a game the entire night. That's the problem. But the Chiefs can't take advantage of it because they just don't have the offense. My worry is that the Bills are going to put up 42 points and lose a football game of the playoffs. Who that is to, though, I don't know. And today's game is, I think, an exclamation point on that. The Bills, if you can go to Detroit and put up near 50, the Bills offense can run with absolutely anybody, but their defense has to hold up its end of the bargain.
No doubt. And I think you're hitting on too. And I think all these playoff games are going to set up this way. So many of the teams we're talking about, Detroit, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Kansas City, what they need, more than anything. Talk about these players' health, all the points they can score, how the defense needs to play. What they need, DA, is an early lead in the game. So, Bills, Chiefs in the playoffs, Lions, Eagles in the playoffs, Steelers, Chiefs, Ravens, Buffalo, whatever. These games will be determined, in my mind, by which team gets a hold of how they can run the game early. Can you rely on your running game? Can you balance it, right? Can you stick to using your physicality and not, like the Lions did today, fall behind far enough where even though you can throw the ball, you don't have that two-pronged attack like you normally do because you're running out of time. You got to get the points. You got to get there. You got to get in the end zone. So that's what I think it's going to come down to ultimately is, the Buffalo Bills, especially like you said with that defense, you're going to need to protect your defense with a running game. And the way to do that is going to be to get an early lead, not get in a track meet. That scares me if you're the Lions or the Bills, who that might be the Super Bowl battle, DA. But it's kind of interesting because usually the teams who throw it around the yard and can't stop anybody don't end up in that big game, right?
You're right. You're right. And it'll be a sin if one of these teams loses a 19-13 battle in the playoffs to a team like the Steelers, because they're going to be like, oh, no, it was the one day that they couldn't put it together. But, I mean, the numbers in this game are absolutely insane. Let's just go over this for a moment here. Jared Goff threw for 494 and 5 touchdowns in a loss. Jared Goff threw for nearly 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions in a loss. Josh Allen had 362 and 2 touchdowns. Again, no picks. Ran for another 68 and 2 touchdowns. So Josh Allen goes for 425 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns, and wins 48-42. Who doesn't want to see this Super Bowl? Could you imagine redoing this at the New Orleans Superdome coming up here in a month and a half? How incredible that would be. And the pressure of those two fan bases, those two cities, desperate for a win. This, if we get this in the Super Bowl, I think America, can go home happy no matter what happens.
No, that's very well said. And doesn't it feel like Allen has to be in the Super Bowl this year with how he's playing right now? Like the funny thing is this week, he's the beneficiary. Last week, he was Jared Goff. He was 6 freaking touchdowns, 342 passing yards, 3 rushing, 3 passing, 82 rushing yards, and loses 44-42. Yeah, no, I think that game would have it all. I think, Dan Campbell and his motivational tactics, his energy, right? Buffalo being the team that always seemingly when they get there just can't get over the hump. You have that fan base dying for that championship and that Super Bowl. You have them finally likely in that sense conquering the Chiefs and getting to that spot. And then also, DA, one thing I do like, I like when the best teams get there and everybody knows this is best on best. Like these were the 2 best teams in the season. Like the Lions are the consensus best team in football. Even though they lost this game, they're a team that if they're healthy come the playoffs, nobody wants to play. I think America would be thrilled by that. I think the Lions, of course, playing in a dome would be thrilled by that matchup as well. Though obviously Allen might end up winning MVP. He's still the front runner, I think, after this. And so you never want to play the team who has the one guy who's the trump card. Like that's what happened to the Niners last year. Everyone watching that Super Bowl, I think, could look on the field and say the Niners, in a lot of ways, looked like the better team. The Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes.
The problem is going to be the Bills are probably going to have to play wild card weekend, because even after Mahomes' injury and the Bills have this incredible output, they're still 2 games back with 3 to go now. So they have the tiebreaker head-to-head, but they got to finish tied to the standings with the Chiefs. The Chiefs have to lose 2 more football games this year. Hard to imagine that in the final 3 unless Mahomes is just flat not playing. So that's how significant that injury is as well, which you can do it. The Chiefs just did it last year, winning a Super Bowl, playing wild card weekend, but you'd much rather, if you could, be able to have a home field advantage throughout Buffalo, play divisional round and championship weekend, and then head into the Super Bowl with that long break.
DA, how about this?
Yeah.
Dan Campbell, tie game, minute left in the 4th quarter, 4th and 3 at his own 36 in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that just popped into my head. That would, I mean, talk about viewership and a huge spectacle. That would go nuclear.
One of the great moments in Super Bowl history, right, is Dan Campbell with a lead going for it on fourth down inside his own, deep inside his own end. We'll see how that ends up. Before I let you go, I wanted to get your take on Bill Belichick going to UNC, because obviously you talked to a lot of people in the league. It seemed like, there was going to be more of an appetite this offseason than last offseason to potentially hire Bill. Seemed like he might have been willing to conform. Reportedly, he reached out to the Jets personally, so maybe he was willing to take whatever was out there, and still he got shut out of the NFL. Why do you think everybody in the league said thanks but no thanks to Bill Belichick again this time around?
Well, I think it was a combination of a lot of factors. First of all, the Eagles' job was the most obvious, attractive job coming into the season that looked like it might open for him. There was already that kind of feeling out process, the Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Bill Belichick coming out of the previous year. So it felt like if that was open, that could be his. That is, of course, not looking that way. But that expanding that to a bigger picture, I started getting calls about a week before this North Carolina news dropped that Belichick was not finding an appetite around the NFL for his services, similar to what we saw in the last cycle. It was almost unexpectedly so, looking at these teams, reaching out to these teams, that people had moved on. I do think, DA, I've seen different reporting about this. I do think Jacksonville would have been a situation for him if he went hard at it. So I'm interested in the fact that he went to North Carolina rather than sticking around and pursuing it more. You could tell, though, by the fact that he was calling the Jets with some urgency, that he didn't want to be left kind of sitting out with no chair in the game of musical chairs. So I think that's why he made this decision now. Like, he wanted to land somewhere first. It is a very strange decision from the standpoint of, if you talk to any NFL coach who's in college right now, largely they say, wow, it's a mess. There's no regulations. You saw Nick Saban, Belichick's friend and former colleague, get out because players are walking in saying, hey, give me $1 million more or I'm going to Georgia or whatever. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, great that it's a pipeline. Great that you're creating this NFL runway, but I don't think he even fully understands what he's walking into. And so why did he not get hired? Frankly, DA, I think he made too many enemies. Like, the fact that the Falcons leaked that he wasn't even in their top 3, and, you don't hire him. So what? Leaking that is a screw you out the door. Or even the fact that this came out that he called the Jets. Why does that come out? Well, because he kicked them around for years and he stomped on people's graves, and they were the Patriots and they handled things a certain way and people accused him of cheating. And I think this is just some things coming back to him. And you and I both know, DA, very insular communities, these like coaching trees, right? It's like the circle of people that you trust. And then outside the tree, maybe people don't understand. Maybe you wouldn't hire someone because they wouldn't run things a certain way. I think people just view Bill Belichick too much as it's all his way or no way. And I don't think it's the right thing for these programs to do. I think a lot of NFL teams are very bad because they're being coached by guys who aren't ready for their jobs yet. But it's very clear that Bill Belichick was not wanted, not only last cycle, but even this cycle. I think a lot of us, including me, believed that Belichick was going to walk into this next hiring cycle with like his pick of 3 or 4 jobs. And once it became clear that it was maybe going to be Jacksonville or nothing, that's how he ends up a Tar Heel.
And it hurts him as well that all of his assistant coaches have failed spectacularly. And so, as you said, this insular coaching tree, had it looked like the genius of Bill Belichick was so obvious in other places around the NFL, you had to glom onto some of that genius. The fact that it kept failing everywhere else meant he didn't have allies in powerful places around the NFL. He didn't have a bunch of head coaches that were under him that said, look, he taught me this, he taught me that. GMs that inspired. Nick Caserio, I guess, is the closest thing, but there's just not a lot of guys from the New England tree that are doing anything in the NFL of note right now. And so it hurt his credibility a lot. You can follow Pat on Twitter at P Leonard NYDN, NFL insider for the New York Daily News. But also your podcast is awesome, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. It's on the Believe Network. What do you guys got coming up here on the Talking Ball pod this week?
Well, we got a Talking Ball live. We do live chats with Giants and NFL fans every week, usually like Wednesday nights about midweek, to go over what happened, to tell people what's coming next, to break some news about the Giants and about things around the league. And then coming out of the Giants' next game against the Falcons, we'll go post-game live, where we'll be dishing on everything that we saw down there in Georgia, probably the Giants' record 10th straight loss, but many of exciting more guests coming. Many guests coming. We just had Matthew Berry on to talk about fantasy ramifications and some sleepers down the stretch. And then Benny Fowler, the Super Bowl 50 champion, and we do First Down with Benny Fowler every week, early in the week, DA, where we do a full breakdown of all the games and all the action. And Benny's he's been in all these locker rooms. He played in Denver, San Francisco, New York, New Orleans, played for Sean Payton, won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. And so we really dive in. And in my YouTube channel, that's where we're all doing all this live. It's PL on NFL is the channel. And I think we bring a unique take to football, to the NFL, and take people kind of behind the scenes.
PL on NFL on YouTube. Everybody right now watching on YouTube, check him out on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel as well, because Pat's one of the best. I've loved working with him for a long time. We've done a lot of stuff together. He's always been great coming on my show, multiple different platforms. Again, today, Pat, for joining us here on the show, I'd like to provide you a bottle of Santo Blanco tequila. This is Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri's signature tequila. All guests here on the show receive a bottle. It is delicious. You're going to love it. We'll get it out for the holidays. So we all could use a way to take the edge off, especially you. You're going to MetLife Stadium every single week, so that's a brutality no matter who you're watching. So we'll make sure we get that out to you this week, man. Thank you for joining us again. It's the Talking Ball podcast with Pat Leonard, available on all of your podcast platforms. You're the man, buddy.
Thanks, DA.
You got it. Pat Leonard joining us here on the show. Good to have him. Drop it on by. Watch DA live. Awesome stuff from him. Let me just say this about this Bills and Lions game before we get to some comments and then put the finishing touches on this show. Chris in Buffalo, my friends in Buffalo that have gone to the mat for the Bills, or family members that have gone to the mat for the Bills, or neighbors and coworkers. I mean, that city is just an amazing sports town. It's amazing for the Sabres. It's amazing for the Bills. But the Bills are the heartbeat and the soul of that city. And they have right now an extraterrestrial playing quarterback. Josh Allen is doing things today that I think you could argue have never been done. Who has been that large, physically that imposing, that fast, that strong, at every level? His arm is a howitzer. He runs like a gazelle. He's got the power of a running back or a linebacker. He's got the athleticism of a much quicker QB or wide receiver. And he's not turning the football over. He's making every good decision. He has now hit the gear in your career where the experience is now in your brain, and physically you can do everything you did when you were 22 or 23 years old. He is at the absolute apex of his powers. And I hope beyond hope that the Bills support system is there for him this January. And that defense, which gave up 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns to Jared Goff and had 48 points to defend, and nearly it wasn't enough. I hope that's not the reason that the Buffalo Bills don't get to the promised land this year. Because what we are watching from Josh Allen is historically amazing. Historically amazing. And you can put his numbers up against many of the other greatest passing seasons of all time. When you add in the rushing numbers, what he is doing, and did it again against arguably the best team in football on the road today. That is incredible. That's incredible. Hey, can I just say something about our very own Last Dive Bar crew over here? Because, man, oh, man, this crew, Brian and the gang over Last Dive Bar, are just amazing. I mean, really, they truly are just amazing. I don't know if you saw this, but in the comments, Brian dropped a $99.99 donation to the show. How about that around the holidays? This dude is unbelievable. He just drops by like Santa Claus and just drops in $100 donation to the good people here at the DA shows, Watch DA Live. He goes, I'm at my son's 8th birthday, but wanted to stop by and say hi. I mean, how about this? Say hi to the D-Aliens. Have a great Sunday. And Aiden as well. P.S. Go Broncos. Bo Nix for the win. And P.P.S. FJF. That is bleep John Fisher. I mean, is this not amazing? Brian Last Dive just drove by and threw a $100 bill out the car window and said, here's to you guys. I mean, talk about a guy that has a heart as big as the freaking Oakland Coliseum and deserved better from his baseball team, because that guy is just one of the greats. And so Brian, man, means a lot. I spoke to Brian over the phone a couple of weeks ago, and we have these big ideas for 2025. And for you guys that have been part of this show and watching it on YouTube grow and flourish and become a family, believe me, in 2025, your loyalty is going to be paid off times a million. Because, I mean, Brian dreams big. He's got big ideas. You know me. I do too. We're going to come together and do some really, really cool stuff, from merch to events to experiences. I think this thing has the potential to be huge. And so if you're in the market for some last second Christmas items, holiday gifts, you could do worse than Last Dive Bar, because they got cool swag, they got cool gear, and you're buying it from good people. And I don't know about you, but this holiday season, you know, I'm talking to the Bourbon Bell about what we're going to get. And, you know, and I said, if we can avoid Amazon, try to avoid Amazon. If we can just avoid that kind of like weird corporate entity, faceless, nameless, where are we buying this from? Where's it coming from? Like, I would appreciate supporting the small businesses, the people that we can go inside of a store and say, oh, I know you, or go online and be like, oh, this is your company. You know, I appreciate that part of it. And for Brian and the guys at Last Dive Bar, they started that as just a passion project. They love the A's. They wanted to make cool merch. They wanted to be a fan supporters group of the A's. It grew into this amazing apparel company, and the website is easy to use and awesome. They make all of our, you know, all the gear that we send out to you guys is just prize packs. They do it all. So if you can support them, definitely support them. Go to lastdivebar.com and use our code Mothership for 15% off. 15% off, all right? You get gear for 15% off. Boom, there it is. And you get to go home with cool stuff. And look at this. I mean, is this not unbelievable? This is like a telethon now. He goes, here's another 100, throwing it out both windows. Are you kidding me? Oh, this is unbelievable. Unreal. Brian for Last Dive Bar just throwing $100 bills out the window around Christmas. Unbelievable. I mean, man, now I don't expect that type of support from you guys, but there is a way to support the show. There is a little tab. So we'll get you guys all the details of that. I think we're going to make some cool membership tiers here for the show, for some extra bonus stuff for you guys, and ways to kind of get part of the Insular crew, to get some gear, to get some experiences, things like that. So when we have that, we'll let you know. But that, I mean, come on. Dude, that's unbelievable. Brian from Last Dive Bar, he's got that dollar bill shooter at the strip club. It's just unbelievable. Dollar bills, floating down on my head. Unreal. Appreciate that. You know, as always, going to make sure we take care of the guys that take care of us here on the show. That means Aiden. That means Ethan. That means Carter. All the guys that work behind the scenes of this. All that. I will make sure I get to those guys and take care of them on the Christmas holiday. So I appreciate that very much, man. That is awesome. Brian from Last Dive Bar. Make sure you use the key Mothership to go get 15% off your order at lastdivebar.com. Also, use our code Mothership for other places for discounts as well at santospirits.com. They get you 10% off your order from santospirits.com. So again, great to spend money where you know where it's going. Santo Spirits, they've been an amazing sponsor of our show as well. They send all of our guests their bottle of tequila, and they've been here for trying to hook you guys up with some merch as well. So I know that it matters to them to be part of a group of people that are as good as us also. So I appreciate that very much from all of our sponsors here on the show. And I'll tell you, I wish I could go through all of the comments tonight because you guys were, this is a flurry of activity, and I loved watching it just from afar. During Pat's interview, I'm trying to keep an eye on this, also trying to set up the show, but you guys know I'm running this thing solo, no Aiden tonight, so I've kind of had one eye on it. So Aiden would have usually had all of these comments posted up, and I could answer it, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to be as tactical on this as I'd like to be. Tonight, also the Bourbon Belle's birthday, so I wanted to make sure that I spent some time with her. We got a sushi dinner that I got picked up, so it's waiting for us. So I'm going to go sit down with the Bourbon Belle, have myself a cocktail, maybe a Santo Tequila, and celebrate with her because she's an amazing support system for me. She knows that this is what I love to do. She knows this is my passion. She supports it all the time, and she has nothing but awesome things to say about you guys. It's the D-Aliens as well, and we as a family want to just send you guys the ultimate and happy holiday wishes and good cheer and good spirits. I consider myself the luckiest dude ever for a lot of reasons, and this is one of them, to be connected with people like you. And I know that I got it real good, so I want to make sure that we try to keep paying that thing forward. And I've met so many good people through the shows that I've done that I just want to continue that. And in 2025, man, the family just keeps expanding. The D-Alien family, the Watch the Alien family is just going to continue to explode, and I can't wait. By the way, if you are going to the Super Bowl for any reason that week in New Orleans, we are there the entire week. We're going to be there with Babs for the morning show on Sirius XM. Starting on Sunday, I think we get in. We do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the whole week of shows. I don't know if I'm there over the weekend yet. I might be. There might be something cooking. I'll let you know, but I know minimum I'm there from Monday through Friday. So if you're going to be there at any point during the week, you got to let me know, and we will make sure we connect, and I will have Last Dive Bar swag, and I will make sure everybody can go home with something if I meet up with you if you're going there. Hey, if it's Bills fans and Lions fans, if it's Steelers fans, if it's Eagles fans, if you're traveling Chiefs fans, what have you, if you get in a couple of days early than the game, I can meet up with you. If not, then if I'm there over the weekend, obviously we'll try to connect as well. Okay. So Chris tweets in or writes in, DA, you came on my football pod. I helped run a while back. Hooked him up with chowder for coming on. That's right. Oh, the chowder was great. That was a little New England clam, if I remember it correctly, and it was delicioso. Got it in the dry ice Chris sent me. So no doubt, want to make sure that anybody that supports me and has listened to me over the years, I try to give back as well and support them. So that's why Pat Leonard's Talking Ball podcast is a great podcast to go listen to, and all of our sponsors are awesome as well. And so I'll tell you, we've had just an amazing night here for just the show and for you guys. And I hope you guys connect with one another over the holidays as well. Just good people. And there you go. You got Brian also saying, okay, back to my son's party. Love you, DA. Love you too, dude. Love all you guys out there listening. And that's why I love doing this show so much. I love connecting with you. Kristen in Buffalo sent me this amazing football food of the week. And if I had Aiden here, we would end up putting a picture up of it, but I don't have that technology right now. Unfortunately, we're running Watch DA Live like 1999 with like a dial-up. So I can't put up the picture right now, but it looked great. And it was a combo of deep dish and tots. Okay, hang on. Let me just see if I can pull this thing up because I just want to let you know what it is. You got to go follow. Here it is. You got to go follow Kristen in Buffalo's Twitter account. This is her Twitter account at KANNE Salerno. Okay, so K and Salerno, Kristen and Salerno is her on Twitter. Also at _plates on Instagram. I follow her. She tweets at me, what have you. So you'll be able to find it that way as well. But she did Chicago and Minnesota combo for Bears and Vikings on Monday Night Football. This is a deep tot dish. Okay, so this is Minnesota's tater tot hot dish with Chicago deep dish pizza. So it's a deep dish pizza with tots in it. It looks unbelievable. It really does. It looks unbelievable. So check it out. Be inspired. Make good food. We got great people here on the show. And when we do a Bob's Bar show, we can all come together and eat Kristen Buffalo's delicious food. And everybody can bring in a dish. It'll be like a tricky tray, like one big potluck dinner. Okay? So thanks, everybody, for watching tonight. Thanks, everybody, for connecting with me tonight. Thanks for everybody for connecting with one another tonight. It is awesome to watch on a weekly basis. All right? So that will do it for us tonight here on the show. I want to sign off here on the program. Be good. Be good to one another. I will see you tomorrow morning on the DA Show with Babchick on Mad Dog Sports Radio, Channel 80.